a flight attendant, you can make as much as $14,000 a month. There are flight attendants who are currently making up to $14,000 a month. Before you start doubting, hear me out. Welcome back to my channel. My name is Priscilla. If you're new to this channel, I am a Seattle-based flight attendant currently working with a major US airline company. I am here to cater to new flight attendants. I am here to cater to those who are trying to become flight attendants. I am here to provide all the real tea, all the info for the new flight attendant out there who just got on the line or who are in training or who are considering applying to become flight attendants. So if you're new to this channel, I have a playlist on how to become a flight attendant, and I also have a playlist on my training experience as a flight attendant. In today's video, I will be talking about the money. Yes, we're going to be talking about the money, l'argent, kuri, depending on where you're coming from, or whichever language you speak. But yes, I'm here to talk about the most important thing, which is the money. Well, other things are important, but I know we all care about the what? The money. I will be providing a full breakdown of the flight attendant pay. My focus, as I said in the intro, will be geared towards the new flight attendant out there, or somebody who's considering becoming a flight attendant, or somebody who has become a flight attendant. You've gone through training, you've started flying, but you're still not understanding how things go in terms of the money aspect. And I feel that this video will provide you the information you need to position yourself better in terms of what to focus on when you're picking up trips, what to consider, among other things. So let's get into it. I know the flight attendant pay is very broad and there is a lot of components to it, but my focus today would be on flight pay, reserve pay, time away from base or per diem, and then also flight leader pay, and then among other things, person service leader. But my main focus would be on the first 4 points, because as purser or service leader, you as a new flight attendant, it doesn't really apply to you because you haven't gotten to the point where you can even become one. So today's focus would be on flight pay, reserve pay, your per diem or time away from base, and then also flight leader pay. I want to make this video as basic as possible, and I'm going to try and make it as simple as possible because, like I said earlier, the flight attendant pay is very complex and is very complicated, and there's so many components to it. Disclaimer though, the pay examples that I'm going to be setting will potentially not include every single pay a flight attendant gets. So keep that in mind. I might potentially do a video later on down the line talking about the different pay components that we have and how much you can potentially maximize your earning. But today we'll focus mainly on those pay components that I mentioned earlier, and I will show you an example of a 3-day rotation that I recently did and how much I earned from that pay. Once again, disclaimer, that pay will not be like the finalized pay for me, but is the closest I can get to the reality of what a flight attendant for a 3-day rotation will potentially be. Also, I will share with you guys what somebody who's been in the industry 12 years or more will get for that same rotation potentially. Once again, I have to make it clear that the pay total that I'm going to show you will not include certain things because they are very minimal or they don't hold as much weight. So that's the reason why I didn't bother to include it, because it just adds to more confusion. My focus is more so on the chunk of the pay, what you realistically can get from that rotation. All right, let's get started. I am very happy. I'm a very positive person. I try to surround my videos with a lot of positivity and excitement because I know it's hard out here in these streets. The job can be as difficult depending on who you're dealing with or the people you're interacting with, and it can be pretty easy. But so far, if you're wondering, if you've been watching me or following me, I am thoroughly enjoying this job. I've had many harder jobs. I've had like harder jobs in the past, but this job for me, mostly I enjoy the flexibility of it. So depending on where you're standing when it comes to the pay for a flight attendant, I know for sure that I enjoy it. I like the flexibility of it, and I like the fact that I'm able to create content around the work that I do. So that's a win for me in terms of the benefits for this job. Okay, so let's get into the pay. I do have my notes. As usual, I always come armed and ready to go. So if you see me looking down, I'm referring to my notes just to make sure that I'm giving you guys all the information you need. That being said, also when it comes to flight attendant pay, it's public information. I will try and leave the information to the website that typically shares the flight attendant pay scale for all the US airline companies in the description box, or I might put it on the screen here. But it is public information. It's very much out there, and I feel it's like that because majority of the time our actual finalized pay at the end of the day, it's not only based on your hourly pay. The first thing is that we do get paid hourly as flight attendants. We're not salaried employees where regardless of how many flights you fly in a month or in a year, you get paid the same amount. No, we are not. We are hourly pay. Also, there is guaranteed pay, and I'm going to explain this. So before you start typing in the comment section, well, where's the guaranteed pay? Where is the guaranteed pay? I'll get to that. The third thing also is that your pay depends on whether you're regional, mainline, or corporate flight attendant. I know there are content out there that are saying that flight attendants are broke, or flight attendants don't get paid their worth, flight attendants don't get paid enough. All that is true. Depending on whether you're a mainline flight attendant, regional, or corporate, and dependent on what the company is paying you, basically as your base pay or your hourly pay. So keep that in mind. You can potentially make very little, but you can also equally make as much as over $100,000 a year or close to $14,000 a month. I have personally spoken to a flight attendant that they can make up to $14,000 a month. But I'm going to go ahead and explain that later on in the video because it comes with work. You have to put in the time. It's not like, oh, I just got out of flight attendant training and guess what? I'm making $14,000 a month. And as much as we all love that, that's not the reality, but it is possible. So keep that in mind. Yes, that being said, if you're regional, you don't get paid that much. I think regional airlines pay the lesser amount compared to the other two, which is mainline and corporate. Mainline pays a bit more higher than regional, and then corporate pays a bit more higher than mainline. But then again, each job comes with its own responsibilities. So you might be regional, but the amount of work or tax that you might have might be lesser compared to somebody who's mainline compared to somebody who's corporate. So keep that in mind. So just do your research to figure out what you want in terms of responsibilities and tax and how the pay aligns for you. Even in mainline, the pay varies. So American Airlines, for example, for a new hire might be paying, based on the data that I found on the website that I saw, $30.35, and this was as of February 2023. And then Delta, for example, was paying $32.20, but Delta just recently did a pay increase. The pay for the new hire or somebody who recently just got on the line is $33.81. I don't know what it is for American Airlines, but that's not the focus for today's video. The fourth point to note is flight attendants do get a raise every month. It starts from $33.81 as a new flight attendant, fresh on the line, and then as you remain with the company and you prove your loyalty, every year you do get a pay increase, and then also you cap out at 12 years. But as flight attendant, the reality is that unlike a typical 9-to-5 job where your pay literally starts from when you clock in to when you clock out, for us, even though technically it is that way, your actual pay, your actual hourly pay, which for a new flight attendant, $33.81, starts when the boarding door closes and the aircraft pushes away from the gate. So as we're boarding, we're not getting paid our flight pay. Keep that in mind. However, recently, airline companies, starting with Delta, for example, is paying for boarding. Other airlines are paying for boarding pay now. I heard that I think Delta started first, and then now other airlines are rolling out that gradually throughout the year as well. So there is boarding pay. I cannot speak for the other airlines, but for the airline company that I work for, your boarding pay is also not the same as your flight pay. So for a new flight attendant, your flight pay might be $33.81, but your boarding pay will not be that $33.81. That being said, let's get into the next part of today's video where I will be explaining the pay components that I really want to focus on today. Once again, this is not the end all be all. There's so many other components that can boost up your pay, but I am here to talk about the core, the lifeblood, of the pay structure. So essentially your flight pay will be your hourly pay, which is the $33.81 for a new flight attendant, or the $76 per hour for somebody who's been in the company for 12 years and above. Let's say you have a rotation, right? And it's just a turn. It's just from, let's say, Seattle to Boston, Boston to Seattle. If the flight time for one leg is 5 hours and the total flight time for this rotation or credit hours is 10 hours, your pay in terms of flight time, in terms of your flight pay, will be based on those credit hours. So it would be those hours times your hourly pay. It doesn't include the boarding pay and all the other stuff that comes with it. It's simply the hours for the flight segment in question. The next is reserve pay. Reserve pay is a bit tricky depending on which airline you're working with, okay? With the airline company that I work for, we get 6 days of reserve days every single month until you get to the seniority level where you do not get assigned reserve days anymore. But our reserve days are 6 days and you do get guaranteed paid for those days. Reserve days are essentially on-call days where you are at the mercy of the company. They can assign you any trip at any point in time. So when I say reserve pay, what I mean is that whether you get used on those days or not, you still get paid. And that is what we call the reserve pay or the guaranteed pay. Your guaranteed pay is just 4.45 hours each day for that 6 days. So essentially the amount of hours you're guaranteed pay for during those on-call days is 26.7 hours. So your reserve pay for that 26.7 hours would be that amount of hours times your base pay. So if you're currently new and you're earning 33.81, then it would be times 33.81, which puts you at $902.72. So when I said in the beginning that we do get guaranteed paid every month, that's what I mean by that. So you do get it until you get to the seniority level where you're no longer assigned reserve or anything. Then you're just working your own assigned trips. But that's what the guaranteed pay for a new flight attendant will be, or somebody who's currently a flight attendant and still get assigned reserve days. So overall, at least with what I know, flight attendants working with major US airline companies, our guaranteed pay to an extent comes from our reserve days. So switching to other airlines, so I did a bit of research and I did find out that with some airlines, once you're out of training, sometimes you get put on reserve. You don't hold a line until you get to the point where you can hold a line. Holding a line essentially means when you get to the point where you're working your own assigned trips and not necessarily on reserve and at the mercy of the company. And if you are on reserve for the entire month, with the information that I found, I believe your guaranteed hours of pay is 75 hours. So remember, with my airline, it's essentially 26.7, I believe, hours that you're guaranteed paid for, but you're only on reserve for 6 days in a month. With another airline where you're on reserve the entire month, you're guaranteed. Entire month doesn't mean that you're on reserve every single day. You do get days off and everything, so not me being dramatic, but your guaranteed pay during that period is 75 hours. Bear in mind that you do not have any assigned trips during that period. You're just on call. So you either get used or not. And whether you get used or not, your reserve pay is still paid out to you. That's why it's called guaranteed pay. So with that airline, if your reserve hours is 75 hours and your hourly pay is at $30.35, which might have increased by now, then that puts you at 75 hours by 30.35, which will essentially be over $2,000. So you're at $2,276 guaranteed pay for that month. If you do get used and it exceeds the 75 guaranteed pay, you get paid the additional hours you work in addition to the 75 hours of pay. If you get used only 40 hours, you still get paid that 75 hours. If you pick up extra trips, you get paid that additional pay plus your guaranteed 75 hours. Moving on to per diem. Per diem is essentially your time away from base. It's a meal reimbursement money that's given to you. Essentially the money you would spend if you were away from your base on a layover. That is also not your flight pay. The per diem, honestly, for domestic flights with the airline that I work for is $2.85 for domestic, $3.36 for international. Mind you, these might sound like very small amounts, but they do add up. I cannot stress this enough. They do add up. Now that we've spoken about that, let's talk about flight leader pay. So as a flight leader, you get paid an additional $3.50 on top of your base pay. So let's say you're a new flight attendant, you've passed your 6 months probation and you get assigned a trip and you're flight leader. You are already getting paid $33.81 with the airline company that I work for, but you get an additional $3.50 for being a flight lead. So that will put your base pay for that rotation at $37.31. So the third segment of today's video, which is an example of an the actual rotation that I just did literally yesterday. All right, so this rotation was worth 20.34 hours and my time away from base was 64.22 hours. Remember, the time away from base is when you get that per diem pay, which domestically is $2.85. And I did 7 leg or 7 flights on this rotation. Day 1, I did 3 flights. Day 2, I did 2 flights. Day 3, I did 2 flights. The reason why I'm talking about the number of flights that I did during this rotation is because that would impact the amount of boarding pay I received. For the 20-hour credit rotation that I did, my flight pay plus my time away from base totaled $878.14. My boarding pay for 7 flights on this 3-day rotation added up to $78.89. So in total, the amount of money I made for this 20-hour rotation was $957.03. Remember, this does not include any sales made on the flight. This does not include any additional incentive pay that we're receiving, especially now that we're flying during summer, among other things. This is a typical domestic 3-day rotation worth 20 hours and 34 minutes. So that was it. I made a total of $957.03. I use this example specifically because as a new flight attendant, realistically, you will not hold international flights unless you're based somewhere in New York that you can actually be able to get those things at a certain level, a very new seniority level. However, the good thing is that being based in Seattle, we do have really good domestic rotations that can potentially earn you as much as you would if you did an international trip as well, because our international rotations are between a little over 20 hours, 21 hours, 22 hours. But in Seattle, we do have domestic trips that are worth 22 hours, so you don't even have to go international to earn so much. That's a good thing about being based in Seattle. Even though we don't have a lot of international destinations, the credit times are really good because I can do London for 20 hours, whereas somebody in New York would do London for like 13, 14, 15 hours. With that being said, assuming you do a 3-day rotation like this 5 times, your pay for those rotations will be about $4,785. If you do it 6 times, you would be sitting at $5,742 a month. Once again, it will potentially be more because of the sales on the flight, among other things, other incentive pays that I'm getting throughout the month. So this is just the raw pay. That's what we're getting. Essentially, with this 3-day rotation, I made almost $1,000. In as much as your base pay might be a certain amount and the credit time you're doing, it's just 20 hours for this rotation, even though I'm gone for 3 days. However, there are other additional pays that come together that pushes up or boosts up your pay. So keep that in mind, okay? We're not here struggling these streets. So with that example being shared, I did want to also give another perspective to this rotation or to this example from the perspective of a flight attendant who has been with the company for 12 years or more, currently working the same rotation. So when I did it as a new flight attendant straight out of training, my total pay, time away from base, flight pay, boarding pay put me at $957.03. However, for somebody who's been with the company for 12 years, their total pay came up to $1,994. So for me being new, I'm making about like $50 shy of $1,000. They are making $6 shy of $2,000 for the same rotation. So that's why I say you can potentially make $14,000 a month, because as you get qualified in certain roles or as you grow leadership wise in the flight attendant industry, your earning potential increases. So somebody who's been with the company for 12 years, who's purser qualified, will potentially make over $2,000 on a rotation like this, because our international rotations are worth 20 hours and 45 minutes, sometimes more. The longer you stay with the company, the higher your earning potential. So it's not far from the truth when I say somebody is making currently $14,000 a month as a flight attendant. Also, the other thing I want us to note from this example is that I know everybody wants to fly international, or in this case transoceanic, which is over the ocean, place to London, Amsterdam, among other things. Bear in mind that when it comes to what you earn, you have to figure out what's most important to you that month. Is it enjoying the layover destinations or earning money? If it's earning money and earning really good money, mind you, your boarding pay is per flight you board. So in my rotation, I boarded 7 times. For an international rotation, you would only board twice. Like I was saying, if your goal is to earn money, then you can potentially make good money working domestic rotations as well. You don't necessarily have to fly international. That's the flex of doing this job, but you have to identify what you want per month because our schedules change every month. So it's up to you how you're feeling every month, you know? But if you do want to make money, you can potentially make really good money working domestic trips. That's why you might find some flight attendants who only do domestic and don't even want to go international because they can maximize their time here domestically doing a good amount of work for a good amount of pay. So choose your battles, okay? You don't only make good money when you fly international. You can make good money flying domestic as well. All right, so with that being said, if you're trying to be a flight attendant, you're considering becoming a flight attendant, these are some of the realities of the job. The pay, people say is bad, people are broke, but I feel like so far, at least before I applied to, or while I was applying to become a flight attendant, when I did my research, I noticed that the people, a chunk of the people that were complaining about the pay not being good enough were individuals that were working with regional airline companies because your base pay is already low. So if you're not getting paid a lot of hours, then obviously your pay will be impacted negatively. Also, when you're commuting, that would impact your pay. You might have to get a crash pad. You might have to stay in a hotel. So if you're getting a crash pad, you're paying for that crash pad plus your rent from where you live. All those things are factors that would impact your experience as a flight attendant monetary-wise. So keep that in mind. That's why I was so grateful that I did not commute, because there are people who are making $8,000, $7,000, $6,000 that I've personally spoken to and are flight attendants and are not even in their 5th year yet. So you can make good money. Trust me, it's bad out there for some people, but with the airline company that I work for, it can potentially be really good for you. So I really share this video because I feel like out there, everybody talks about how much the pay is not good, but being in the industry, you can potentially make good money if you want to. You just have to know how to work your schedule and be strategic. Obviously, when you're starting off as a new flight attendant, that might not be the case. If you were in training, you probably spent a lot of money just being in training and you probably have guests sitting there waiting for you. But if you're able to be very strategic, be mindful of how you spend, but don't overdo things because you want to be here for the long term. Somebody's literally right now making $76 an hour flying as a flight attendant. And remember, that's not the only pay they're getting. If they're PERSA qualified, if they're working flight lead, that amount is potentially nearing more towards $100. Plus, you get the flexibility the job has to offer and the ability to make your own schedule. So there are wins, plus the flight benefits, among other things, because I know people make way more than that. But the flexibility that our job comes with and the easiness of the job itself makes it well worth it. If you're looking solely on the money, you can make money. This is the honest truth. Like, you can make money as a flight attendant. I know everybody's always out there. It's hard, it's not good, blah blah blah, but it highly depends on the airline you're working with, whether you're regional, mainline, or corporate. But before I leave you guys, in summary, once again, you can make a lot of money as a flight attendant. You just have to know how to work your schedule. Secondly, you have to be strategic on how you work your schedule when you're bidding, among other things. Those are all huge factors as well. Lastly, pay attention to the credit hours for rotations or on the rotations that you pick up or you get assigned or you bid for, because sometimes the rotations with the best layovers might not necessarily have the best credit hours. But the whole point of this conversation or this point is that you have to figure out what you want and then also pay attention to the credit time as well if your goal is to make money. So that's it, guys. This is the simplest way I can break down the flight attendant pay for you. Once again, I'm going to end by saying that there are so many other pay components that might boost up your pay, but this is just the most basic way I can explain it with a very basic 20-hour credit time rotation, so you guys can get like a feel of what the pay potentially might be for you. I do plan on definitely creating another video where I show you guys how much I earned a month. I would do a reasonable amount of work, get a reasonable amount of time off, and then I will show you guys what the income was for that month before taxes. Also, all the amounts that I mentioned in this video were prior to tax deductions. Once again, thank you so much for watching. If you made it this far, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. Support your girl. Your girl is trying to hit 1K here, okay? Support me. You like the content because you keep coming back and watching the content. So support me by subscribing. Also, don't forget to share the video. Share the video on all social media platforms. I give you full full permission to do so. And give the video a thumbs up and share your thoughts in the comment section below. As I've always said, I don't have all the information, so correct me if I'm wrong. Leave it in the comment section below. If you think I'm wrong and you think flight attendants are broke and cannot make as much money, let me know your reasons in the comment section below. Let's have a conversation, okay? Let's talk about it. Let's talk about it. All right, thank you so much for watching today's video, and I'll see you in my next one. Bye-bye.